So yeah, I will start this, and thanks for like having this, like allowing me for this opportunity to talk with you and ask some questions and things like that. So I never imagined in my life that I'll be talking to Ron Soren, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's fine.
here we are. So I want to ask, like, how are you doing with this, like, whole COVID thing, like, and
I'm hanging in there. I don't think I've had it. Everybody thinks they've had it that I know.
yeah.
Um, I don't think me and Pat have had it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Knock on wood.
And how does it like affect your like gigs and things like that and like
Yeah, I mean, gigs are still happening here.
mhm,
We're not gigging. We're actually
yeah,
just got a drummer for the first time in years, getting ready to come down and do some gigs with us and
yeah,
rehearse and record. We're actually going to do some recording with him
mm-hmm,
before we do any gigging or anything like that.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, but yeah, he's a younger guy. He's like 20 years old.
yeah.
Old guys now. We're in our 30s.
Yeah, I'm also somewhat like not so old, but yeah, I'm just starting to by the way, what age were you when you started to like get into this microtonal stuff, you know?
Uh, I would say right before age 24, I would say it was kind of like a lead up thing. Like
Yeah.
I would say around age 21, I was getting pretty serious about being like a guitar player,
Mm-hmm.
trying to be a guitar player
Yeah.
and professionally, teaching. And so when you teach, you try to gather as much materials as you can.
Mm-hmm.
I was in college too, so I was kind of just like in a sponge mode where I was trying to absorb as much things as I could. And at the time, you had stuff like Soul Seek and before that was Napster, it was like the late 90s or whatever. But anyways, yeah, you go through like a collection phase where you're just looking for like PDFs online, anything,
Mm-hmm.
anything that there is, because you're just a student, and you've already exhausted the library at school or whatever as far as like the materials going for music theory and things like that. So you tend to find some underdogs online who are just posting like weird articles or maybe some papers that they had written from years and years ago, like say Paul Ehrlich or John Calmers. I'm thinking of those two guys. Divisions of the tetrachord was a big thing. That PDF is online and free and available. Paul's middle path paper is free and available. But what happened is I was looking for like deeper music theory, essentially. And I was collecting just everything you could imagine. It was getting silly. I had this thing called a PDF printer where you could just
Yeah.
print online. You could hit print and it would print it to a PDF file, right?
Yeah.
And it would save the website as a PDF file that you could keep forever or whatever. So I was doing that a lot with like microtonal websites that now are even gone. Some of the sites are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Non-octave comes to mind. Yeah, I don't know if you remember nonoctave.com.
No, no, I'm
Yeah.
not very
There used
familiar
to be
with
a
those.
software
Yeah.
called Little Miss Scale Oven,
Mm-hmm.
and you could like make like any scale, like non-octave too. So you could say like, I want so many of this tones to this past the octave, and it would do it, and you could get really in there and separate the spacing and really weird things. Like they were making music out of like rocks over there. But anyway, yeah, you go through like a phase where you absorb stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess around 24 was when it was like, okay, I'm a real boy, I had written a few books. Like at that point I had compiled some of the stuff like Scala. I'd found Scala online. So compiled like all the scale charts from Scala onto guitar fretboards.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
know. Yeah.
and then went to do my lectures and stuff like that because Heinz Bohlen had recommended me to do a lecture at the Bohlen-Pierce symposium. So that was really cool. That was probably the turning point right there for like, okay, I'm definitely, this is the path, you know.
Mm.
But yeah,
Wow.
I was about 24 when it was like, that's for sure. When I first got into it, 22, 23 maybe, you know. but like that's what led up to it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to be professional and have as much information as possible, you know.
Yeah, and I see that it really took off. I can explain like for me what happened when like I don't even remember how I got into microtonal music, but like here I am ordering 19-tone guitar, and now I'm like playing this like casually listed 24 and things like that, and that's not enough, you know.
19's pretty cool. 19's got like a woody, dark flavor to it, and it's got like a sweet melodic um, mood. So it's just I never really jived with it myself, but I understand it more now than I used to. It's like the small steps are bigger.
Hmm.
Small steps are bigger, but you have two of them in there, and you can do some like inharmonic type feeling things with
Yeah, and
those
there's also
small
like
steps.
this thirds and sixths are also more resonant. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah. Are they closer to the fifth harmonic? I think they are. There's
yeah,
something. It's
yeah,
like five limit is closer. Yeah, but yeah.
yeah.
Um, and then the fifths are a little bit detuned or whatever.
Hmm.
So I think the whole tones are a little narrow, but then your small step, your leading tones are a little bit wider, and then there's like two of them in there, right? Or something
Yeah,
like that.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so more about the question before I move the more general questions. I want to like have more advice on how would you cognize microtonality? Like, there's this ways to like uh, you know, devour it, so to say. Like, hey, this is MOS, moments of symmetry. This is just intonation. This is like this symmetrical, per octave. This is like not a symmetrical non-per octave, and then all these modal things, and and like there's just so much, and like are they in some kind of categories or something?
Yeah. The way I think of it is in each equal temperament, you're going to have one or two scales that you're going to gravitate to um, as your main bed. And that's kind of, you don't have to approach it that way, but like if you wanted to get artistic about it, like you could start saying, well, I'm going to make an album that's, with this scale is the bed. Imagine the C major diatonic scale, right? And
Hmm.
all the metal bands are playing, the Frisian mode of that scale, right? And they're starting on E and F, and they're going da 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 da
Yeah.
da. And okay, and so that's they're playing Frisian mode out of that scale, and that scale's the bedrock. It's like the bottom of it built everything's built from that. And so when you kind of think that way, you're like, okay, well, what's the bedrock scale of this 19 tone or this 16 tone or whatever?
Well, you
And
can.
sometimes you can get
Yeah.
a few different bedrock scales. You can get like you can use augmented. Once you get a lot of notes, it doesn't really feel like you're just playing a symmetrical scale. Like augmented or magic or diminished. Once you get like a ton of notes filled in the spaces, and it's not just four notes
Hmm.
but it's like 12 notes and diminished. It's almost as if you have another diatonic scale at your disposal because you could just use the major and minor stuff out of that. Um, and most people would just go, okay, that's just harmonic minor. They would hear it and go, that's harmonic minor. But
Yeah.
but yeah, the way that I think of it is like it's kind of simplified now. It's like if I was playing in 17 tone, like I would practice McComic and that's just because that scale is just like the obvious scale, um just like in C, C major for 12 tone modes, that seems to be like the obvious scale. If you're playing perfect fifths and thirds, what other scale does that so well in 12 tone? No, not really many. So I think in each equal temperament you kind of have like the perfect for your fingers, that we only got four fingers, we're playing three notes per string
Yeah.
or four notes per string on the instrument. So it kind of makes sense. Like if you play McComic, you're going to be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You're going to have four notes per string. If you're playing Mavilla, you're going to have nine note. You're going to have four notes per string. But if you're playing, seven note diatonics, you're going to have three notes per string, eight notes. You can have three and four. You can do all kinds of things with that. That you're going to get different sequences and shredding sequences and musical ideas from the extra note of, like, say if you have like an 8-note scale and you never really play 8-note scales. Like for example, I don't really play 8-note scales.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did, I would probably play the 7-note variation out of it, just because it's weird. I mean, unless I was trying to, like, I don't know, make a blues lick or something out of it. I don't know. I'm sure I could figure out a way to use it, but I just don't usually think of, playing 8-note scales
Mm-hmm.
like in the sense of like 3 notes, 4 notes, 3 notes, 4 notes, or, I mean, that sounds like 7, 3, 4, but like when you look at a guitar, you're going to have that extra
Mm-hmm.
note when it repeats. So anyways, the way that you finger things affects,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
you're going to play that temperament. So, if you're going to be playing a 9-note or a 10-note scale, just be ready to be playing 4 notes per string and
Mm-hmm.
getting good at like sequences of, like, like when you do groups of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, this is a new sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4. That right there was your
Mm-hmm.
finger. 2, 3, 4, 1. And then when you
Okay.
go bum 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 bum, that one's not new. Bum 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 bum. But when you go bum 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 bum, that's new. So you're gonna have, like, unless you're used to doing 4 notes per string, groups of 5 or 4, you know what I mean? But yeah. So new sequences with guitar.
Mm-hmm.
That's my approach. Is like, okay, I play guitar so much, and I teach guitar, and I teach people how to play diatonic scales, 3 notes per string, and
Mm-hmm.
arpeggio fingerings on regular guitar so much that when I think of these new systems, I think, okay, well, what's the things you're gonna do? You know,
Yeah, but
like,
I understand you from your answer, it's kind of replicating the like and approximating tonal harmony in some way and like
yeah,
bumping into
yeah. You
new
have to know.
options.
You have
Yeah,
to also do some
yeah.
studying
Mm-hmm.
of each temperament, and kind of accept what harmonics are going to be there, and think a little bit about it, and listen too, because, like, sometimes, you might think on paper that this harmonic is going to be the one I really like, and I'll base everything off that, and then you go to
Mm-hmm.
play it, and it's not what you wanted. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, with 16 tone, I was finding, that kind of thing. I was thinking, oh, well, the fifths are flat. I was first getting a 16 tone. I was like, yeah, but you could use the thirds and the sevenths in place. It's like, if you use a third and a seventh in place of a fifth everywhere, it's going to sound like the band. It's going to
Yeah.
sound like it's going to sound like 70s music. It's going to sound like a dominant chord moving around. It's not going to sound metal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could use like minor thirds and minor sevenths, right? And riff around it, and use, moving root and flat root and stuff like that. But then it's like, you're not really talking harmony, you're talking melody there.
Mm-hmm.
So harmonically, when I play 16 tone now, sometimes I just bend the fifth a little bit. If I'm sustaining a fifth, I'll bend it a little bit, just because I know that the fifth's out of tune, and it'll sound better for a split second, and it's okay. I'm not obsessed with being only 16 tone. It's mainly about just finding something you like, really, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
16 tone, I found that I really liked some melodic properties of it, and the harmonic stuff came later, that, understanding that what it could do. But yeah, you got to like study, and you got to think, okay, what harmonics do I have at my disposal? What MOS scale is the most diatonic, like, or it's going to lend me progressions that sound like good music, like major, minor chords, or whatever chords you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've got a limba album, for example. It's totally, the base of the album is limba. It's not like mavilla or major and minor and mean tone. It's this 6-tone scale called limba, and
Mm-hmm.
you can fill it in, and it becomes a 10-tone scale. So it's kind of cool. It's just like a weird tonal whole tone scale. Usually whole tone scales are like not tonal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
They're
for sure.
and they just keep going, right? Well, this one's got like 7 limit whole tones, right? And then like narrow whole tones. So it's kind of like a
Yeah,
wide,
it's
wide.
modal. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and it's
yeah.
got like modal steps, right? So kind of looks like 2 major trichords just stretched out to
Mm-hmm.
a tritone. So it's like wah wah wah, and then it goes again.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. So anyway, but the chords that you're going to get in a system like that are going to be all tritone chords. So at first when you hear it, you're going to think this is like diminished, you know, it's all tritones everywhere, you know, but then you'll hear something and you'll go, wait a second, they're like mixing that with major or minor or fourths or something. Something's going on here. You know, it's like when you hear Voivod or you know, some of those weird bands that use tritones everywhere, and then after a while it just starts to sound like a neon color in the music. It doesn't even sound like a tritone. It doesn't sound dissonant. It starts to just sound like neon and cool, you know, like textural and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's my goal with that, with to try with that album, and so that's my approach, you know. So you kind of think of that MOS as the bedrock, and then so on that album I might have limba as my bedrock, but then I'm still going to play like diminished licks and a couple whole tone runs here and there, you know, and it's no like has to be in one scale, you know. It's whatever you hear,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's cool to constrain. That's my approach. Like some people like to just use their ears and do things like whatever they hear and just go with that. But my approach is more like kind of like take a little focus.
Methodical, yeah, I would say.
Yeah, not get too obsessed with it, but like kind of get really into it, like go into it, you know. So that like that with this album, it was Mavilla, you know.
Yeah.
The next one is going to be kind of like I think they're calling it anti-Marvel. What it is, it's like a regular diatonic scale, but you have 3 step sizes, so it's a rank 3 MOS in 16 tone. It's a broken diatonic scale.
Wow.
It sounds fairly regular.
Yeah.
When you listen to it, the music just sounds like 16 tone flavored harmonic minor, most of it, but it's fairly technical. And then the one after that is like all diminished, but with power chords, and like it's just pretty punk, you know. It's pretty like raging and straightforward, like kind of Slayer. And then we've got another one that's a little bit more brutal. So we've got a bunch of work that we haven't released or anything like that, but we're just kind of like, you know, working on it and making sure it's right and things like that. No rush really, because we're not gigging. It's not like we need new things to sell. You know what I mean? We just want it to be right and do it right by us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
No
do
rush.
agree with this notion. Yeah, it's better to do like as you want, especially if you have no constraints, you know, on selling and making your living out of it and stuff. You know, that
Yeah,
can be
because
very damaging.
once you print all that merch, man, it's gonna be sitting there, and you got to make sure it's worth the real
Yeah.
estate. It's gonna sit there. We still have a ton of records. You know, we still have a ton of CDs. We didn't sell them all out by any means, but when we do gig, they sell. So that's a good thing. Like when we do our gigs, like that's like a lot of money comes in from the merch. You know, so that's pretty cool. A lot of support in the microtonal community as far as that goes, you know. People who don't even listen to death metal might buy the album, you know, and that's just because they're like interested in the sound of the guitarist too. So I think that's a cool thing, is like this is such a new area that people that don't normally listen to this music or even like care at all about this music will suddenly be interested, because you're the first guy doing it in that scale, you know, or maybe not the first, but
Or
you're doing
even at
something
all,
totally
yeah.
new.
You know
It's
what I
totally
mean?
new. You're doing a new style in that temperament that they like, you know. So if somebody likes 24 tone or likes 19 tone or likes 16 tone, they probably will like your band if you do well, if you do it right, or if you make it musical, listenable. See, that's the thing with us is we could have made our album like all crazy and technical, and we wanted to at first, but I went back and I was like, am I listening to this kind of music? And I started thinking about all the bands I like and listen to, and I was like, I just want to make something that I like to listen to. As far as like if I was just like throwing CD on after CD after CD, you can see some CDs behind me on my wall. I love CDs. If I was just like swapping CDs out, if I just grabbed my band CD and tossed it in there, that's what I wanted. You know, I didn't want to be a sore thumb. I wanted to stick in with those bands, you know, and so that's why our stuff sounds like the way it does. Our early demos sound totally different from what we turned out as a band. But we still got some cool stuff coming. I still got like a technical album coming, which is pretty shredding and pretty technical and like progressive and stuff, and tight knit.
Well, yeah.
And then the next one after that is just like awesome death metal. Like anyone who likes death metal will listen to that and go, whoa. You know, it's really listenable. That's the thing. It's like you put it on and you're like, 30 minutes just went by, you know. So that's the good thing. It doesn't feel like when you're listening to the songs, you're like, oh, when is it gonna end?
Yeah.
You know, some of the bands that are so technical are like that for me now. Because I like to just listen to something and not like be like bombarded by it, you know.
I
And so
mean,
that's the other thing with
I'm
microtones.
guilty for this.
Microtones. No, well, your stuff has cool groove and cool odd time signatures and phrases that repeat that your ear can latch on to, and it's nice. So it's cool. It's heavy, and your recording production's getting better and better, man. So
Yeah, thanks.
when you do, are you gonna put any lyrics or anything over it eventually?
I would like if I have the band, like, but like I have multiple problems regarding this. First of all, finding
Yeah,
musicians and things like that. So,
yeah, it's impossible
and
to find a good
and
band, man.
if I had like a band, a project would be very different. It would be more
Mm-hmm.
simplified to the musicians involved, and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm not also really, this. Don't have much experience live and playing one take. Of course, that I can solve that. It's just practice. But
Yeah.
getting to other people's
These are
limitations
all realistic
and
concerns. These are
schedules,
all,
and yeah, and
yeah.
it would be very different. But I would at one point definitely I would like to do that. Yeah, but until now I'm just going to do this my studio things and just
Yeah,
keep
that's
making.
all sounds like real concerns. Yeah, you got to worry about all that stuff, and that's why it's so hard to do. You know, even as a mic, the microtonal thing makes it 10 times harder.
Yeah.
You got to find people who are crazy enough to want to play, microtonal metal riffs or
And
whatever,
like completely relearn something.
and
Yeah.
jump in. They got to jump in and get an instrument too.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to provide them with instruments, and then that's like all this stress on you. Which is early on. That's what it was with me. It was like I had to make all the instruments for everybody, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, he needs a guitar. He needs a guitar. He's the backup guitar player. He needs a guitar.
Yeah.
Really a
Yeah.
lot of work, man. And then and then see, that's why our riffs are easy too. It's like, man, it's nice when you get in that rehearsal room and your riff is like 5 or 6 notes, but it's a good riff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a good thrash riff. And it's like, man, that feels great. The band just can play it.
Yeah, for the same reason, I would like to tone it down to some different, almost like
Yeah,
genre.
yeah.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was writing. I knew some extraordinary musicians. I was writing music to be in these really difficult and insane bands that would cost thousands of dollars to put together. And one of the drummers was from Switzerland, and he would just gravity blast like different speeds, and he had quad pedals. So his kick pedals were going like this, and he would go, and you're just like,
It's like glitch or something.
totally insane because you don't
Yeah.
even know what to do with that kind of power. It's like having a nuke or something. It's like or some kind of insane. Oh, too much power. It's too much power. But not at the time I was like writing really difficult stuff, MIDI guitars, click the MIDI on and off. There's a string, thing comes up, just totally ridiculous. It was like Ludoslavsky funeral music
Mm-hmm.
made metal. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was ridiculous. It was like was trying to go like super avant-garde horror atonal,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had
and it was
strong
like,
pull to that, but I wasn't technical enough to pull that like
yeah,
well.
and when you finally put it together, you're like, these timbres are plastic.
Mm-hmm.
You start to just not like your tone. You start to not like what you're doing. It's difficult. So I
We
think
have
the,
been there, yeah.
the the key is to like play, if you're going to do that kind of thing, is to explore like methodical um, stickings for drums that are like really nice to play for the drummer, but like explore like tuplets and polytuplets that aren't too complex but are still really musical.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just like some
Yeah.
really long phrase that's really hard to remember, but like, you might have a pretty metal riff, and then at the end of the tagline, you might have like a group of five under a group of three, or a group of
Mm-hmm.
three or two, start simple and then polytuplets or just interesting tuplets. Like a lot of metals drummers don't play fives. Like you never hear like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4
Mm-hmm.
1. You just don't hear groups of five that much.
Yeah.
They could stand to play more groups of five, groups of 10. You know,
I
and
think
it's
rhythm in general.
it doesn't feel weird either, man. It's nice
Yeah.
actually to play a group of five because it's just like when you do an odd picking. It's like you start with an up on the next phrase. If you play the same riff and you're into playing riffs alternate picked and like real clean and tight across strings, you're going to start with an upstroke on the next group of five because it's an odd group, right?
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, it's an interesting one that people don't use as much, tuplet wise.
Mm-hmm.
Groups of five are used, sure, but like within 16 notes or whatever. So it's like one, two,
Yeah.
three, four, 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 1 2 3.
But
It's not.
I mean, not just that. I think rhythm in general is very underappreciated. Like, for
Yeah,
example, like the things that Meshuggah has done with it. Like, for example, Frederick soloing is like very like single, like the slow solos, like in Shed. Like it's
yeah,
really
those guys
like
really, they're a
fantastic
band that's
how,
like in
yeah,
it. They're really in with the tuplets and stuff like that, like
yeah, yeah.
in the technical rhythms, especially in the counting and the really large sections and stuff like that, and small little
And
parts
it's
too.
all under like it's like 4/4.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
they got cool pulsing and stuff going on, and yeah, it's that polytuplet and polyrhythm thing.
for
But
sure.
yeah, there used to be a group called the Zen Rhythmic Alliance. I don't know if you remember that. I
Yes,
remember
I
Dustin had
remember.
made up this shorthand for writing time signatures. I can't remember what it was, but it was pretty cool. And I always think
Yeah.
back to that, like, man, that's so cool. If you were to just make a whole band utilizing that kind of like notation, it would be really cool,
Hmm.
and that'd be like really original and outside of, the notation thing, because the notation thing is kind of like of the problem, but
Hmm.
it's like it's definitely the constraint, you
I
know.
mean, if you know it in the first place,
Yeah, if you know it in the first place. If you don't know it in the first place,
Yeah.
then it's a little different. But you gotta like you have to have developed like some kind of like amazing autodidact technique
Hmm.
for it to be musically amazing. That's
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
that's the hard part. Is like you can muscle it out and not know, deep music theory and stuff
yeah.
like that. Like, but like I don't know. You have to have had developed a great amount of talent too to make it interesting, I guess, from other musicians because they've put so much time in their instruments and they're so good at their instruments that they want somebody who has, some kind of thing to offer their, I don't know, their search or whatever it is,
I mean, people like Josh Travis excel at this because they don't know
Yeah, I'm not
he
sure
doesn't know like
who is this.
theory, but he spends so much time with his instrument. The guy
Yeah.
from Danza, he
Hmm.
really is like
Yeah, yeah.
he's
So you can
percussive
spend enough
playing.
time
Yeah,
to become an alien, on your instrument. And that's
yeah,
also like really cool.
for sure. By the
Yeah.
way, I wanted to move more about the more like personal questions, like on your
Okay.
way to to the point where you are. And the first one I would like to ask is, how do you keep yourself motivated, and what's your coping mechanism to just keep going, musically?
Um, hmm. I don't know. I think about that sometimes, like, why am I still doing this?
Yeah.
I could just stop, recording.
Hopefully not.
I don't
Okay.
have to keep making albums. It's just making myself make album after album. I haven't released them
Yeah.
yet, at least. But I don't know. It's fun. I have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun making music, and I teach every day.
Hmm.
Um, well, not every day. There's a couple days I'm off, but the days that I'm off, I'm learning. I'm still learning myself. Like right now, I'm learning, how to make amps, build amps, tube amps, and wire up, hand
Yeah,
wire
I can see.
and so like I'm always learning myself, and so that keeps it interesting. And I thought that maybe when I was 35 I would be playing like, I don't know, Alan Holdsworth like music, and it was going to be, you know, Xenharmonic Alan Holdsworth music, and that would be what I'd be more into. But I still like metal, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
For
still
sure.
fun to play. It's
For
still fun to
me.
play. It's still fun to play, and I thought that I would grow out of it. Maybe when I was younger, I was thinking that. Like I really thought that maybe when I was older, it wouldn't appeal to me as much. But it's still really fun to make technical sounding riffs, and you know, the stuff that I release isn't as crazy as like, you know, the stuff that we have like in this computer, but
Mm-hmm.
like it's still pretty cool, and I plan on releasing more. So I guess me and Mike, my old guitar player, or my guitar player, he's still in the band, but he
Mm-hmm.
moved far away. He's in
Yeah.
California, I'm in Florida. And we wrote like a ton of riffs like 10 years ago. And so this album has just kind of been sitting for like 10 years. And so it took forever to make. And so I'm kind of like at the point now where I'm like, okay, it doesn't have to be out like right away, obviously, you know? So I kind of wanted to learn how to make things sound like the best they can sound, you know? And that's what I've been working on myself, like, is trying to get like a really awesome album tone for production. And just, you know, because I went to recording school here at a community college, and got my Pro Tools certificate and things like that.
Mm.
And that was years ago. I have an old version of Pro Tools now, but yeah, so like I know Pro Tools, and we use Pro Tools, and so I like to record. I've been recording since I was a kid. I used to use a 4-track to record and do like Beatles covers and stupid shit, you know. But now it's like when I sit down and make a recording, it's like I'll like smash modes around. And I have a few ways I like to compose where like I like take like I might just take like 2 modes and just move them everywhere, you know, and then
Mm-hmm.
do like Lydian. Say if I want a floaty piece, I'll be like Lydian and then like Dorian or something. Lydian and Dorian, and I'll float around, and they don't have to be like diatonically related. I'll just be like Lydian up, Dorian down right next to it, and it sounds like a change. And then I'll just feel around the guitar and make music
Mm-hmm.
out of it, and things like that. Like that's just lately what I've been doing. And then I'll do other things like I'll pick 2 chords, like an 11 chord, and then
Mm-hmm.
like say like a cool altered 13 or an augmented chord or something, right? Or no, like a minor 7 chord, right? And I'll go minor thirds up attached to the 11 chord, right? It's all minor thirds
Yeah.
in every direction with that same chord. And then on the same place, you know, play that minor 7 chord and do like whole tones attached to it or something. And then along the intersections of the two, I've created my own like 2 interplaying like lines. You know, you've got
Mm-hmm.
one line of 11 chords and then another line of 7 chords, and you've kind of created your own logical language. Like when you try it out and you like move up and down and you play like this chord against that one here, and then this chord against that one there, and then this one against that one there, in each spot of the neck in each position, you'll hear the logic. Like you can create your own games in logic
Yeah.
with guitar and composition, and that's the fun part for me too, is like keeping it a game and making it fun. And I don't know, I like
Mm-hmm.
guitarists like Rick Graham a lot too. Like I follow Rick Graham, and
That's
uh,
the fast one.
I
Yeah.
like Daryl Gable. I don't know if you know who
Yeah.
he is.
I don't
He's
know.
great.
Oh.
He's old school. Marshall Harrison. So I
I
watch
know Marshall Harrison. Yeah.
all my favorite shredders. You know, I still
Mm-hmm.
watch them. Marcos Fogley's great, but he doesn't put out the kind of stuff that like these guys do. Like Marshall Harrison, Daryl Gable. You know, those
Yeah.
guys are putting out really awesome shred fingerings, and always have, you know, since the Chops from Hell days, before YouTube. See, like I remember when there was no YouTube,
Mm.
we were like having to like, you know, there was no guitar lesson. You could just go on YouTube and learn your modes. You couldn't do that. It was like, so that's when I was talking about absorbing information and stuff. It was like I was
Mm-hmm.
on this quest to like figure shit out. And then I met my guitar player Mike, and he just knew all his modes, 3 notes per string, no, because everywhere you looked online, it was like 3 notes, 3 notes, 2 notes, 3 notes. It's like if you
Mm-hmm.
go to play 16th note triplets with that fingering, you're gonna stutter. It's not gonna be like,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. It's not gonna be smooth, and the fingering matters. So anyway, um, yeah, finding somebody who knew the right fingerings at that young age was like super important and like kept me playing, I guess, because if I had just, I don't know, maybe I would have gotten sick of metal. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if I hadn't found the right technique to play and get properly acquainted with my instrument and guitar and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so from that, I would like to ask the next question. You already highlighted it here, but you probably have had some quitting music moments or something related to that. Do you have like any specific ones early on? Like,
Like quitting,
yeah, yeah,
like gave up.
like struggling, like this dilemma or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, dude. I had a bad health thing going on.
Yeah, I
You
remember
see,
you,
I had
yeah,
you can kind of see I've got a rash there. It's
yeah,
not bad now, but at some point my whole body broke out in this like insane
yeah,
psoriasis rash, and I don't know why. I don't know
yeah.
what did it, what triggered it. I think it was the heat because
Mm-hmm,
I keep my room at like a pretty cool temperature now, and
mm-hmm,
in Florida it's like 100 degrees year round, and it's like 100% humidity.
mm-hmm,
So it just peels the paint off the walls, the humidity peels your skin off. And what psoriasis is, it's like your immune system is like eating itself. It's like eating your
mm-hmm,
your, your skin. It's bad. And I usually get that kind of stuff like if I sweat out in the garage a lot, or if I sweat like
mm-hmm.
doing a lot of work or something like that. I'll get like a rash or something if I overdo it or overheat myself.
Yeah.
But this was like really crazy. It was covering like 99% of my body, dude. It was insane. And doctors were like, what do we do? So I met actually a really cool guy named Mario out in the Dr. Phillips area here in Orlando. And he gave me his cell phone number. He was a really cool doctor. He gave me his cell phone number. And he gave me his band CD. His band was called Skin.
Yeah.
Their band was called Skin. And it was like, they were great, man. He had like great songs on that CD, and I thought, okay, this guy's good because he's like a musician. He knows I'm
Mhm.
fucked. He knows my skin is destroyed.
Yeah.
You know, he made me feel like pretty good, and gave me like discounts on medication and stuff. So I was really lucky to find him because before that, it was like a barren wasteland of like SS doctors, dude. Like they just cold. Hello, welcome, Mr. Sword. Just totally cold. But this guy was like, hey, dude, here's my cell phone number, my band CD. It's like, I don't know. It relaxed me to a point, deep, deep relaxing. I don't know. I was really upset at that time, too. So, yeah, there was a point where the skin on my fingers was coming off, and I was teaching, and I had to go into work, and I had to still make my money. So I was going in to teach, and it hurt to open. I remember I couldn't open a water bottle because it hurt so bad. And like if I like tried to open a water bottle, like it just felt like I had no skin on my hand, like just really like just flesh,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it was bad, and I was having to wear rubber gloves to fret the frets while teaching, and they were like, "Why are you wearing those rubber gloves?" And the rubber gloves would make it worse
Yes.
because they would sweat and hold in the moisture. So it was terrible, but it hurt.
Yeah.
So there was moments where I was like, I want to die. This sucks. But I don't know what got me through that. I think if you want to know the truth, at that point I was pretty hopeless. When it came to my health. So I just smoked cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes and ate bad food, and I stopped giving a shit about my health. Before that, I was like vegan, eating like
Mm-hmm.
hemp protein powder, taking omega oil vitamins and things like this, and keeping pretty healthy, taking not too much vitamins, like but just the right amount and things like that, and watching my calories, watching my diet and things, not eating too much red meat, to just eating a burger every day, smoking cigarettes, being a total trash bag. You
Yeah.
know, like, but it did something. It like internally, I think it like slowed down whatever it was, or maybe it gave my whatever it was that was eating me something else to fight. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's no
Probably.
explanation for it. I tell that to doctors and they go, "Holy shit." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's not good." You know,
Mhm.
medicines help too. Like they give me steroids and things like that, but you don't want to be on steroids too long, you know? Um, and stuff like that, you know, it's like really bad for you. It hurts your organs and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was like I don't know. There was a moment there. I think I was like, how old was I? Probably about 26, 20, yeah, about 26.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was 26,
Just like
26,
my age, yeah.
27.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, that's a while back now. But yeah, that was probably the hardest time for me as a musician and person, you know, is going through that because the medicines they were giving me too, this is the other side of the equation, were really expensive. So I'm having to do like this really brutal like guitar and woodwork and sanding and stuff in the heat. And at this point I didn't have AC because I had moved out to my girlfriend's apartment and I was working out of the garage in this apartment complex, no AC, you know, so it was just a million degrees and dark and it sucked. And yeah, so there were some times where I was just like, man, why don't I just go do something completely different? I don't have to do this, you know. But I battled through it, and yeah, it was like the medicine was really expensive. That's what I was getting to. It was like the
Hmm.
medicine was like something like almost $1,000 a month, less. I mean, even more than that. It was like every bottle of the shit that they had prescribed me was like $800, and you needed it like 2 or 3 times a month. So who can afford that? Who
Yeah.
can honestly just throw $1,000 every couple weeks at some skin foam or some skin lotion? Like it was literally like this little foam. So later on, the generic came out and it was like pretty cheap for that medication. But for a long time, it was a lot of money and I had to pay it. You know, it sucked because it worked. It like the steroids knocked that huge rash down. Then I was able to like try to change my diet. And at the time, I remember I changed my diet a few times. I had like started eating these salads and not eating meat and stuff like that, and not eating like fries or drinking cokes or anything like
Hmm.
that. And it seemed to help. It went down, and then it just came back way bad, and it was like, what? So it might get worse, and then it might get even worse, and then seem like it's getting better, and then get really bad, but then it might get really good.
Yeah.
For me, that's what happened. It kind of got better. So luckily, you know, and I was a person that was drinking like tons of water. Like got a water here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it had to do with internal stresses. I don't even fully know, but yeah,
Hmm.
it's weird. It's weird to think about now because it was pretty brutal. I didn't really have much of a thought of a future at the time. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna die. And the doctors were like, yeah, it's looking bad. Yeah. So
Wow. Okay. Do you have like any like disposition of society, like enmity, jealousy stories, and things like that? Knowing you're a metal guy and
oh,
not,
everyone has that shit.
yeah.
Of course I have that, man. And the reason why is because look, and when you're in a band, there's like everybody wants to be controlling in some way, but a lot of people don't want to put in the work, and
Yeah.
put in the time. They just want to reap the benefits of being in a popular band or being the center of attention or being the best at what they do around town or whatever it might be. But I always just felt like putting the time into something and making it worthwhile, you respect your audience more.
Yeah.
than just, going out unprepared and not really putting a lot of thought into what you did. And that doesn't mean like everybody should just be sitting there going crazy, being microtonal and changing everything. You don't have to do that. But I'm just saying, like, for us, it was really rocky because we just always had, guys who saw that we had this thing, like this really original thing, right? And that it was pretty cool. Microtonality is pretty cool, and it was totally new and original, and not many people had done it, and it was like seemed pretty groundbreaking at the time. I was doing like lectures, so getting a drummer to do what we wanted to do was really tough. And we had some drummers who were in really big bands. Like there was a guy who was our first drummer who was like started originally as drummer for like this big, I'm not going to say their name, but there's this really big band from Orlando, and they used to tour on Ozfest and be on the cover of magazines. They had like big parental support too growing up, which I was always, we were always like, damn it, because they had so much support. So we had him as a drummer for a while, and then he quit, and he's got another band now, but he's got this kind of history of quitting these major bands right before they get big. And so we always felt like, oh, we're going to be big because he quit our band. But and that kind of was also like, okay, so that was, we want to talk about motivation. Losing a drummer like that who everybody says is the best drummer in town, right?
Yeah.
And he's pretty good at drums, right? Losing a drummer like that made us just want to write sicker riffs. Like, who's going to beat us in town with writing sicker riffs? Me and Mike? No, it's not happening. And we're going to make sure we're going to write the nastiest riffs on the craziest guitars you ever fucking saw. And it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And you're going to wish you were our drummer in the end. And that's what we accomplished, I think. we really did accomplish that, but it wasn't like, you shouldn't, be motivated only by negative things like this. But I think we turned something negative and turned it in positive because we felt like, oh man, this is like a major blow. Are we going to be able to stick together through it? And it was like, fuck yeah, we're going to shred, dude. And we did. I went to his house once or twice a week at least. He lived about 45 minutes to an hour away in St. Cloud. And I would drive there every weekend or every midweek or so because I was in college. So you have like a day off in the middle of the week or whatever sometimes. And I would go over there and we would shred from like, I don't know, sometimes like 11 a.m. or like noonish to 9 p.m. at night, and we would sit there. We would have pillows on our chairs and we would go for little breaks every like 3 hours and shit and like, drink a smoothie and eat some sandwiches and get back to work. And we took it pretty seriously for like a long time. So I think that also motivates me to keep going now because the drive that I had then, I have so much material now to just like produce and play with and, send through cool amps. And, I can take this riff I got and I can try this amp out, And so yeah, we turned the animosity into like a driving factor, I guess you could say, with the drummer situation. It was always a problem. And then when we toured, it was like this drummer came out of nowhere from like Nepal. And it was like, what? he's like really Nepalese, like he's really from Nepal. Like it was crazy. And he knew all the songs and like was windmilling while playing the songs. People were at the shows like with their phones like, holy shit. Like and coming up going, your drummer was windmilling the whole time. And it was like, yeah. So it ended up being okay, so that's another example of a low and then back up. You had this drummer who was in a band that played with Ozfest, and you could be that band, you could be a great band. Oh, it's taken away. And then all of a sudden this drummer just creams everybody. Nobody knows who he is. It's just wipes the floor with everything that you knew, It just goes to show, man. There's guys out there that live in the mountains that you never knew were there, man, and they can shred sicker than anybody you knew. And
Yeah.
that's how Mike was my guitar player too, man. Like before YouTube, like I said, how are you shredding like this? It's like okay, Speed Kills Michelangelo Badio,
Yeah.
Intense Rock 1 and 2 Paul Gilbert. That's it. You want to talk about like lessons that are available to 3 notes per string shredding with good arpeggio fingerings? Like those are the two videos really. And Paul didn't really even go through the modes, like showing you exactly like the arpeggio fingerings. He just gave you really cool licks. Whereas like Badio actually kind of showed you more like the rules. But like Mike had like shredded with like Steve Morris, Mark Tremonti, a bunch of local like shredders in town. Like the story goes, he was doing some like stained glass window work for Mark, and he goes, "Oh, you play guitar?" And Mike goes, "Yeah, I play a little guitar." And he was like 16 or something, and he pulled out the 16th Caprice by Paganini, note for note, like probably played like not fast, but like quick mid pace, perfect, you know,
Hmm.
perfect.
Yeah.
And you see it and you're like, oh my God, it's like a music box, So he was an amazing guitar player for his age at the time too. So it was like, I don't know, these are the things that motivated me.
Hmm.
People motivated me.
Yeah.
Um, and you got to find that motivation, man. You got to look for things that are motivating too. Like I could latch on to my shitty day or, you know, the fact that this person hates me or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's like if you have something like I was really lucky to find microtonality too. That's the other thing.
I'm guilty for that too. Yes.
I'm lucky.
I'm
Like
very
I got
lucky.
really lucky. Like
Yeah.
there's not a microtonality for everybody. Like I mean I guess there is, but it's not like you're gonna be able to walk up to guitar and discover something as like
Yeah, completely.
Pandora's box level of microtonality. Like microtonality was something. It's kind of like the pre-YouTube. It's like you've introduced the YouTube of guitar. Before it was like guitar was something you could learn every mode, you could learn every key, you could learn every chord, and you could alter every chord, and you could learn it. You could
Hmm.
learn the theory of it. There's only so many harmonics, there's only so many MOS scales up to the seventh fret, and you can learn it. You can learn the guitar in and out, and you can become a master of the electric guitar. I swear you can. Um, Now that there's microtonal guitars, you will never master guitar. There
Hmm.
is no mastering it. There's no
Yeah.
becoming the god of all guitar. It's like give Steve Vai an 18-tone guitar.
Yeah, he will. Yeah.
Give Steve Vai a 16-tone guitar. He has a 16-tone guitar, but listen to what he plays. He's got to sit down and do some work in 16.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
Steve.
true.
Everyone does. It's just like that. It's like you can't. Nobody can walk up to like say. I mean, maybe Paul Ehrlich can walk up to a 22-tone guitar because he studied it and knows it like an alien. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But even then, there's so much stuff. There's 22
There's
keys,
so much.
22 keys, all those modes and all those MOSs in every key. Oh,
Yeah.
so
I
many
mean,
combinations you can do.
the
Uh,
relationship between every scale and every chord. For example, I got this like very good concept, like the melodic minors relationship with like whole tone scale and diminished scale, and like diminished scale itself has so many like chords in it and etc. And if you like do that to different tuning systems, it like comes exponential, like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing.
Yeah, but the one thing is this: say diminished, right? In
Hmm.
19 tone, I don't know what it's called. It might be called Amity or
Yeah.
Liaise or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it's like you don't have diminished because it doesn't have 4 notes to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
octave,
Yeah.
right? It's like one short or one bigger
Yeah.
in the case of an alternate temperament, right? So you have like some cases a non-octave diminished that might hit like
Yeah.
some cool harmonic up high, you know? That's what magic is. Magic is major scale, where the major thirds, not major scale, but the major thirds are a little narrow,
Hmm.
more in tune with a 5/4. And when you stack them, 5 of them up, you'll hit 5/1, which is higher up of a major third, right? Like a 5/4 is a major third in 19 tone, I think. Well, if you imagine that like past the
Yeah.
octave, way up high. No, I think it's actually a 3/1. I think I lied. It's not a 5/1, it's a 3/1. I
Yeah.
lied. So it's a fifth above
I
the
mean, it's
octave.
hard for me too, but
Yeah, okay, so listen, if you stack
Okay.
up narrow thirds, right?
Yes.
Major thirds, narrow major
Yeah.
thirds, you'll hit a fifth above the octave,
Mm-hmm.
and that's called magic temperament. Now, normally you would have 3 major
Wait,
thirds
isn't that Tritev like in
for
Bohlen-Pierce?
augmented. What?
Isn't that like Tritev to like Bohlen-Pierce? The
Yeah, it
three
would
one.
be
Yeah.
like
Okay. Yeah.
Bohlen-Pierce. It's a non-octave scale
Yeah.
where the cutoff point or period would be
Mm-hmm.
3/1,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so like it still sounds diminished.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing, okay, so if you're playing guitar and you go minor arpeggio and then you play a diminished arpeggio, even though that diminished arpeggio is part of amity or liaise or whatever new diminished family it is, it still sounds like a diminished chord in music flying by as a tension diminished chord. You know, you go minor, diminished, major, you know, whatever you do with the diminished chord in between the two chords, right? It's gonna sound diminished. It's even if it's liaise or amity temperament, you know, so magic still sounds like augmented. See, that's the beauty, is like you still know what these forms and genus of the scale sound like. It's the genus of the scales, like
Yeah.
augmented, diminished, you know, these are, and they have a pattern to them, you know, minor thirds, major thirds, you know, that's the core pattern of those scales or core
And you know what's
interval.
the interesting, the harmon like this microtonal relationship with like the guitar, like especially like baritone guitars. For example, I really like these low 4-string chords, and they usually sound really bad, but they have like good characters, and especially with like tunings like in 24, and if I had like 16 8-string, then I would probably get into these low, like these, like I call them these chunks of tones, like tonal chunks, and
Clusters.
yeah, tonal clusters, and
Yeah.
it's really really cool how they change this relationship. Like if you pull them and like up the octave and etc. There's completely different characteristic.
Yeah. There's some other things to be explored, like say new approaches to like like what's that the atonal approach where you do the serial, clusters.
Oh, do you mean like the Schoenberg or a different?
Like for example, Schoenberg probably did it, but like there's a book called The Melodic Thesaurus by Nicholas
Oh,
Slonimsky,
I don't
and
know him.
it's basically like a 12-tone melodic thesaurus, and it's
Yeah.
called the lexicon. It just shows like it's pretty exhaustive. I think Arnold Schoenberg said something about it like
Hmm.
good work, exhausting all the possibilities, but remember you need to be making music.
Yeah, and like Ron Jerzambek also has this some kind of this series of
Yeah, it's by Nicholas Slonimsky, and what it does is he shows you like I think it's like one major, one minor, and two augmented would use all 12 tones.
yeah
It's Ron Jarzombek kind of uses that approach too.
yeah.
He'll have the wheel, and then he'll use so many of them, and then use this one and this one, and then so if you use like so many triads or 4 notes in a chord, and you start with like a major or minor, you're gonna end up with an augmented or a diminished at some point, right? Because that's just the way the families interact in 12. If you did the same approach in 16, you'll find the same thing. If you went minor, major, you're going to end up with like Cinder or Slendrick or Gorgo.
But it would be
Or
so much more like synthetic, like new, because there's like more
yeah, it
chords.
won't sound like anything you've
Yeah,
heard, but you're
yeah,
still going to have those pentatonics. So you got to think about your pentatonics, because in 16 tone, your pentatonic scales, you either have Mavilla pentatonic, which is kind of like when you play it certain ways, it sounds like Indonesian Pilog. And then you also have a wider whole tone pentatonic, which is Slendrick, and it sounds like 5-EDO, or like what Slendrick would be, like 5-EDO, right? So it's pretty crazy. Like those are two different, like really exotic, and they're really contrasting because I think that has the sound that it has a wider fifth. I don't know if it really does have a wider fifth than the root, but it feels like it has a wider fifth. Like Cinder isn't a wider fifth. It's like wide whole tone, wide whole tone, wide whole tone, and 3 of them hit and make a perfect fifth, right? But when you play the scale, because of those wide whole tones, it feels like breathier and wider. It's a wider sounding pentatonic. So when I think of it, I think of that wider 8/7 interval. And so the Mavilla pentatonics, I think of like, like P-log pentatonics and things like that. I haven't, admittedly, I haven't done like enough homework in my Mavilla 9 pentatonics. I still need to go through like just discussions like these. I'm like, man, I got so much work to do. Still,
Same. I'm so inspired, by
and
the
I've been
way.
playing that guitar for over 10 years now. I've been playing 16-tone guitar for over 10 years. Every day I touch it. Every day I play it, and I still play 12-tone too. I still teach every day 12-tone,
Yeah. By the way, what's your relationship with the just intonation 16 tone?
Oh, well, you've seen the utonal guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
I'm
so
talking about that. Yeah.
yeah. So I still play that guitar. I don't play it as much as my other ones because I'm working on albums
Yeah.
like right now I've got this guitar right here. It's a 16-tone guitar.
Yeah.
So, but see, it's like right within reach, and then right within reach also 12-tone guitar. You see?
Yeah.
So I'm chilling next to these guitars all day and playing them all day. When I have an album in my just intonation guitar and I'm really focusing on it, I'll probably be playing that more and posting more videos. I want to post more videos with that guitar because I know people want to see it, and I know that they're gonna go crazy over
There's
it.
just this itch. Yeah. It's like, how does it sound? How does it sound?
Yeah, they want to hear it, and they can't believe it's real, and I can't believe it's making real sound, and
I think it's really one of kind. Like, I don't know.
that's really cool. Yeah, I don't know what possessed me to do that. It basically, I used to have conversations with this guy Jim French, and he would talk about modal determinants, and he was talking about how everything's the modal determinant. And I don't talk to him much anymore, but he lived across from like a bird sanctuary, and he had made all these different bird calls for different types of birds.
Yeah.
But he also had made like every flute out of the Kathleen Schlesinger Greek Aulos book. Like he made every Greek flute that was like documented in that book, like hundreds of flutes probably. And he made like tons of Irvin Wilson's flutes, and he's a good friend of Irvin Wilson's. And so, anyways, I mean, he talked about making a pentatonic subset of a 31 tone with a penny whistle slide on a flute, so you can slide, but have a 5-note MOS in 31. So he's a pretty creative guy, and he was telling me about how the modes in 12-tone, or the modes as we know it, were derived from different sets of modal determinants, like 14 13, 14 12, 14 11, 14 10, and then the next one would be like 13 12, 13 11, 13 10, just going right down.
Yeah, just like you had like in the also, yeah.
Yeah, and when you start at 14, you end up with 7 notes because it's 14.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's kind of how it works with these. Anyways, looking at her book, I just thought, man, it would be cool to try that with a chunk of 16 notes. And then I got to thinking, well, you have to kind of use 32 to 16 if you're going to do that. You could arbitrarily pick some other zone or mash together some zones, but I didn't want to talk about it, like that this is another thing I wanted to get to. Is it's nice to talk like we're talking now, right? Because we're talking actually about a lot of stuff and covering a ton of stuff fast.
Yeah.
But what the people on forums will do is they'll just talk about the same scale for like 20 years, and they won't do any music, and they won't like they'll obsess too, like they'll truly obsess over like a scale or something, and then
this is my 53
never make a physical
GI,
version of it. So the idea was to get physical,
Yeah.
I'm not going to just talk about it. I'm going to fret this scale, this modal determinant utonal version too, because somebody had told me that's more difficult, to do the utonal is like the inverse of the otonal, whatever, right? It's inverted. So I don't know. It was a challenge. I also wanted to make something that looked really cool, and I thought it would be cool to connect the frets because a lot of just intonation guitars just have little fretlets. And as you do bends, you
Yeah.
hear this, it goes over the frets and kind of catches sometimes too. If you don't do a good like rounding of each fret and they don't overlap just the right way, they won't properly transition with bends across each other. And it sounds weird too. It's like, it has this weird
Like an
like,
auto-tuner or something.
yeah, yeah, it's weird. And it doesn't really sound like what you want either because you're already bending. You're bending and then it's screwing up your bend when it hits that other fret.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? So if you have a fret that kind of curves, you can kind of like control the bend in a way. And some bends are more exaggerated, and some bends are real weird. They like bend down or something. I can't quite describe it, but you do a bend and you expect it to do something, and because the fret is angled this way, you're like, "Rah." It stays. It like stays. So you do
Yeah.
the bend and it's like, but it's because the fret is bent towards you and you're
Yeah.
bending or something like that. Like there's some weird stuff happening on that guitar. And there's some zones on that guitar that will bite you. Like for example, when I didn't do the fretwork as well as I should have, I did do the fretwork, but I didn't. There's always going to be like on normal guitars. There's like a few areas where you're like, I got to work on this little fret
Yeah.
here and it'll be perfect. This thing is like insane, and I got it playing pretty awesome for what it is. And after a couple setups, it's like a pretty awesome guitar, right? But there's still like, you do a bend and there's a fret there right in the middle of your finger.
Yeah.
It's like you bent into an arrow, and it's like so you learn pretty quickly. It's weird. Even though you might have muscle memory from doing a bend in a certain spot forever and ever and ever, once that guitar bites you in that bend, you won't do that bend again. It's like not to do that bend there. And you kind of change your technique too. You're not doing bends everywhere like a normal guitar because you've got the harmonics that you want. And you kind of want to explore those and not just play the crap you've been to normally. You know what I mean? So the kind of stuff I do with that guitar is like, if I'm doing bends or if I'm doing like vibratos or things like that, a lot of it's with the bar,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I still haven't built the brother guitar or sister guitar to that guitar. It's an O-tonal 8-string guitar, and I've got the body already made. It was going to be an 8-string headless version, and it's going to have like a really low G or something like that. I can't remember, like an 8-string G instead of an F sharp. It would be like a G because the way that it works with the system.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that guitar is like, see, that's another thing. It's like having I'm blessed to have met somebody like Jim French and Irvin Wilson, and then been inspired to make something like that. And then, and it to work out, and work, across the strings. You can find each note. Like on this string, if I go about 5 frets this way on a normal guitar, I can find that same note, just like on a normal guitar. It's like it's all there, it's all correct. It turned out great for the experiment that it was, because I figured, if it turned out like crap, I'd just peel it and put a 16-tone fretboard on it. It'd be awesome still, because it had it looks cool. It was like kind of like my tribute to Auerswald, but also my tribute to like Kathleen Schlesinger and all these just intonation gurus. There was another person. It was either George Sikor or somebody else. They had written like this awesome paper about elves and how these elves popped out to tell him about just intonation chunks of the series. And it was like 15-tone chunks of the series, and the elves, told him this. And it was really cool, and it got me thinking. That too, I think, might have influenced me too, to think, hey, he's on the same path here. Chunks of the series. You'll find that when you do that kind of stuff, a lot of it factors down, and you get like regular intervals. Like there's still a perfect fifth and fourth. Pythagorean intervals. That guitar is full of Pythagorean intervals. It just looks crazy, but it's not that crazy. It's not that crazy,
But it sounds good. Yeah.
It is, but it's not. You can do a lot of regular stuff on it, and by that I mean like you can play like a C major, an A minor, relative
Mm-hmm.
to each other, it'll sound like almost like a regular guitar to somebody, obviously it'll sound like something's going on, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a cool guitar though.
I wanted to what's your relationship with stage and anxiety? Like,
Age
think,
anxiety?
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
like,
know. When I get on stage, or when I was touring and I was playing shows, I didn't really get stage anxiety. Probably
oh,
maybe the first show, maybe like the first or second show a little bit, because it was like, I don't know, I didn't know what these people were gonna think really.
mm-hmm.
But once we started playing, it was like, okay, we're good.
So you have like passed it, maybe because you like teach and everything, and you know.
Yeah, the teaching really helps. Like I have a lot
Mm,
of guitar confidence with the teaching and
yeah,
stuff. Just pick a guitar up and rip around on it and stuff. It's like a toy now because I've been playing
yeah.
it for so long. I've been teaching for like probably 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, playing guitar every day for 15 years for hours and hours will do it.
Wow, I wish I would like do that, but no, that's
Yeah, and
not not
when
possible.
you're teaching, it's a big thing
Yeah,
because you gotta like communicate and you gotta make progress. They have to get better. They have to
yeah.
get good at guitar. you know so I've had a few students like get really great at guitar, for over the years, and like get scholarships at Berkeley, and
Mm-hmm.
go to whatever college they want and that kind of a thing. um and then some students like who didn't do that and like made songs and like got like millions of plays on Spotify and on TikTok. Like there's one of my students, he's got
Yeah.
like 15 million plays on his latest single. Like that's crazy. So yeah, and a lot of these students that I had, I taught them since they were really young, and so they know the microtonal theory and they know the microtonal
The
harmonic
seed
stuff.
is already there, like it's corrupted in the
Yeah, they
root.
know it. Like they know all their chords. It's like it's pretty crazy. It's weird. If you have things broken down in a way that's bite sized and everything makes sense. Like I teach everything from C major, so it's C major is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you count it, and then suddenly you know all your chords. Um, if you count up to the scale in C major to the 13th note, and you put that in a chord, there's your 13 chord. I break it down to that level to where the kids can understand music theory like that, and they're not sight reading, obviously, but they know what they're talking about and doing. So I've seen kids come in who don't play guitar, and then in like a year they're taking lessons with Joe Satriani, and their parents are like sending them to like crazy expensive lessons and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I can prep people to get to that point. Like to get. I'm trying to get a few new guys. I have a couple new students who are like really want to learn, but they don't know if they can. And so it's like you got to make that leap of confidence. Um, you got to tell yourself this is going to be awesome. I'm awesome. This is going to be awesome. What we're going to make is going to be awesome. And and stay motivated and find little things to stay motivated. Because
For sure, for sure.
it's impossible to always be happy.
Yeah.
With everything you do, and stay totally motivated all the time, especially with everybody's different circumstances. Like I know
Yeah.
because man, when I was making really little money and it was really hard, like dude, it was like hopeless, but I somehow still did it because you have to do it. So you don't want to also corner yourself, but you do. Like if you challenge yourself, you'll shine a little bit, but you got to find a comfort zone too, so I'm lucky I had a job to teach, and then I've got the guitars. So for me, it's been like guitar, guitar, guitar. You see, I've dug my hole, but it's guitars. So it's not like I should be doing guitars. I'm doing guitars.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to be gigging. Sometimes I want to be playing more music or recording. But ultimately, it's if I'm not putting out as much albums as I should be, which I know I'm not, I got to be doing something else that's worthwhile. And so I feel like the guitar work that we've done and all that stuff has been a huge, huge thing. like I feel the world's different now. It's a different place
Yeah,
because of some of the guitar work that we've done.
for sure. I
Yeah, like
mean, like
bands.
I'm there's an example here.
Yeah, there's bands that never existed, you know, like
Yeah,
bands and musicians and tons of people with guitars. And look, there's a ton of people that have guitars that don't have bands,
yeah,
that have these microtonal guitars that might be forming bands or might have like recordings that they haven't released, or they're planning to take over the world, you know.
for sure. I mean, people like Brenton Brines and like I
Yeah.
mean, they're really like shining, you know.
Yeah, he's really great. He's a great example, you know, of what you can do, like the fresh, you know, just put the guitar in your hands and the music sounds that much different and more like a breath of fresh air, you know.
Yeah, and he's so thoughtful about it. Like he really went into it. I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
22 is a really cool guitar too, though, you know, like there's some freebies in there. Like for example, if you play like a an E minor 7 chord, like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like this, like you normally would on guitar, you know, 7th fret,
Yeah.
7, 9, 7, 8, right? Off the A string.
Yeah.
And you're barring with your index finger, you know. It sounds like an 11 limit chord of some type or something. The way that the fourths stack up, it glows. And it's like 19 or 22 everywhere when you play chords, it's like the chords, they give you this like weird 11th harmonic glow, and I don't know what it is. It's probably not even the 11th harmonic. It's just that it's that 22 has the 11th harmonic, and so you feel that along the logical line in your mind or something with the intervals, the way they stack up, and the way that you feel like you hear that fourth, and if it keeps going, eventually it's going to hit an 11 or something. Something subconscious is telling you this is like 11th harmonic is in there, and it's really weird. It's like they sprinkled 11th harmonic salt onto the dish and
Mm-hmm.
like taste it. It's so weird. It's the weirdest thing. So 22 tones like that, 16 tones like that in a weird way too. It like glows in a weird way, that kind of 11th harmonic. Yeah, like the major 7 and 16 is the is a 11-6 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the narrow whole tone is like 12-11 or whatever. So yeah, 11th
Okay.
harmonic flavors.
Like okay, for example, if I wanted to try a new tuning, like what what would you suggest, like, or a
Okay.
beginner, like, or somebody like?
Okay, if a beginner, okay, so this is what I would suggest. This is how I got into it. I demoed Easily Blackwood's Equal Temperaments CD. I just listened to a few different scales and a few different musics, and I found that it was, for me, it was between the way that 18 or 16 tones sound. I just like the idea of a completely alien thing. And then when I emailed a few people, I asked Carl Luma. This is a long time ago, like over 10 years ago. I emailed Luma and I was like, what about 16 tone? And I said something along the lines of, I remember he had like a decatonic scale in another temperament, and I had charted it out, and that's how our discussion began. But then it moved over to 16 tone, and he said 16 tone's pretty crazy, and it would be good for metal because it's got some sour qualities to it. It kind of just sounds like brooding and dark, and then I read the Ivor Derek article, and he said something like 16, try 16 tone.
Yeah.
That's totally different, you know? And so that's what really got me into 16 tone. But I would say for like a beginner, try listening to different music. Like, you know, don't just listen to your favorite band and do what they do.
Yeah.
You can do that. You can do that. But like, say you like King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard. Well, if you buy a King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard guitar neck, I'm shooting myself in the foot here. You buy the guitar neck, you're just gonna sound like them. You know, if I was other people, maybe I would go for like a full 24. And here's why: because you can do the McComic scale on all 24 keys. You'll have Cincy, which is like based out of ADDO. You'll be able to do these like tiny diatonic scales that are macro diatonics. and there's all these cool like ultra chromatic Vishnugradsky concepts.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like you can really jazz out of it, you know.
See, you got to listen to Vishnugradsky, you got to listen to Alois Haba or Aloy Haba, however you say,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Carrillo, Julian Carrillo. All these people, they're all really important. Easily Blackwood,
Mm-hmm.
they're all the first people in microtones. The Adrian Fokker Foundation, Huygens Fokker Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
they had a recording called Trisesimo Primal Music, and they had another record called Music in the Fokker Hall or something like that. It's music in the museum, and they play the 31 tone organ, and they play it's like Hank Badings and stuff. I think is on that one. I'm not sure, but he might be on the Trisesimo Primal one. But there's like two 31 tone records. So do your research and listen to the first 31 tone recordings, the first 24 tone recordings, the first whatever, and listen
Yeah.
to what draws you in about it, because if you might not like it, if you don't like it, then you don't like it, you know. But what you have to do is you have to kind of find why you don't like it, because if you just don't like close together intervals stacking up and beating against each other, well, you know, I'm a microtonalist and I don't like that. Really, I don't like to listen just you're just beating against each
Mm-hmm.
other on a harp. You know, just
Yeah.
I don't like that musically. It just doesn't do anything for me. It used
Yeah.
to. It used to be like, oh, that's a quarter step, and you could hear it and think and do your little training or whatever it was that
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to hear. But for me, like now, I want like good melody, good harmony. I'm
Yes.
interested in these tonal
Yeah.
systems, and I'm interested in like hearing music that's functions like classical music, but like
Mm-hmm.
utilizes a new tonal system. You know,
Hmm.
like instead of diminished, use limba
Yeah.
in place, and instead of augmented, use magic in place, and instead of your harmonic minor, used Mavilla 9, and
Mm-hmm.
instead and then make music. And
Hmm.
it sounds crazy. It sounds it the theory holds up from everything you know. It just
Mm-hmm.
applies to all these new temperaments and scales, and you can experiment with the new stuff. It's now that's an old approach though. You see, like this chord, then this chord, then that chord, and it's like classical. We're still going back to classical music and talking about the structure of chord changes and
Yeah,
replacing
like modal harmony. Yeah.
substitution.
Yeah.
It's almost like a microtonal jazz substitution
Yeah.
approach to classical music, but really it's new harmonics and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
um, there's
Hmm.
like people out there now, like say like Adam Neely on YouTube, who like are giving people like good lessons on music theory and stuff that didn't exist. So
Yeah.
people now are more respectful, I think, of music theory, um, because the musical examples of those kinds of videos too. They get to hear like 5 or 6 different like jazz approaches to a chord progression or something, and then they go, oh, you know,
Yeah.
I like that one. They might find one that they like. Like, oh, I like the Coltrane pedal point idea. What's that? Oh, I like that chord. And then they're open now. They're open to another idea, but they might have started off with jazz. I don't like jazz. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I had the same problem, yeah, but I learned some things and but to answer your like my question, I would like to add some practical things as well. For example, if you have this 24 tone like tuning, then you'll still be able to play with the band, relatively
Yeah.
well. And for practicality of the like geometric of the guitar, I would suggest people to play from 13 to 16 tone because you can be you can still shred and it's
Mhm.
not too many notes, and even if you take 13 it will be heavily microtonal like with just one added note. Yeah.
Yeah, because the difference of all the notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the reason why we chose 16 over 18 in the end, was the practicality. It's like every
Yeah.
note was frettable. Um, if you just went like, up the neck and went 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 just chromatically and then back down, like I could do that.
Hmm.
And even now that I'm getting older, it's getting harder because my fingers are getting fatter. When I was
Yeah.
younger, I had like more slender fingers.
Yeah.
And so it's getting harder to fret those microtonal scales. But when you're younger, you definitely can do it. And if you have slender fingers, it's easier. It's surely easier. Baritone guitars make things harder, honestly. When it comes to like a 24 tone or say you might have noticed on a 24 tone, you have to be accurate when you're playing
Oh
like a
yeah.
major scale. And so the stretch is actually more. You have to stretch more because you're used to just banging in between a big wide fret, and then you have some space there. You can inch up on either side of that space.
And you also have to be precise so you don't have to buzz in it.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And that takes time. Sometimes if you already are shredding through your regular guitar and playing your modes 3 notes per string, you can do some things where you go over to the 24 tone and you run through your modes, right? But you just sharpen up how you stretch a finger or two, and then you kind of look and you listen, and then you kind of might need to just go over just a little bit before the frets, or sometimes you might need to move towards the fret a little bit, just because you're not getting enough pressure real fast. It is a light motion there, so there's like a little extra calibration sometimes too when it comes to these scales. Yeah, 24 tone is a hard scale. That's not an easy temperament.
Yeah, and
Anything
also
beyond 19 is hard.
and the chords are really
And further,
hard.
it's a buzzy one too, like because normally you're used to not having frets on all the places where they are now.
Yeah.
So when the string vibrates from when you pick it and stuff, you might have already accepted certain amount of buzzing. When it's unplugged, the guitar buzzes if you have like really low action sometimes.
Yes.
It has a little bit of twang if you pick hard because it's unplugged and you can just hear the strings spanking against the fretboard. Well, if you plug in, you won't pick as hard and you'll get that sustain, and then you'll notice. So, if it's buzzing, you'll know. But you can get low action where it sounds like it's buzzing when it's unplugged, but when you're plugged in, it sounds fine and it sounds good and it sounds proper. And if you raise the action, it wouldn't feel good or sound good, right? So there's like a fine point there, right? And there's also just this, it's going to buzz more. It's going to have more buzz, and not like bad, like 20, if it buzzes, so you can fix that, right? But I'm saying like that kind of picking too hard, you hear a little bit of slap from the string on the board. You're going to have more of that. And some people aren't used to that, and they think it's buzzing, and they go crazy trying to get rid of all the buzz. And it's like, plug it in, make sure. Like I've got an Axe Effects. Not everyone has an Axe Effects, but on an Axe Effects, you can really hear any buzzes. If there's a buzz, it's like way exaggerated, as in comparison to like a real amp. The real amp will like fill in some of the sounds, and you'll have like some bass notes in there, and like it fills up. Even though it's buzzing, it's just not. It's like a not clear version of the note. Whereas the Axe Effects will just turn it into a,
Yeah.
So there's things like that too. Like I've noticed some of my guitars had more buzzes than I realized. But it's like this on a normal guitar. If you get a good guitar from the factory, like say from like Warmouth, you get a guitar. There will be like maybe 1 or 2 areas when you lower that action that you want to fix and then touch up and then get just right. Not always, because they do a really good job, but sometimes you'll have to adjust something, right? And if you imagine double of that, that's 4 frets, 5 frets, and that can be frustrating. When you're getting into it, you're like, damn it, this guitar is messed up, there's 5 frets I need to level. That's normal, because once you get that action perfect, you got this thing. The sustain changes. The strings go to a certain height and they feel like almost looser, but that's just more sustain. It's not like a bow and arrow. I think you pluck it and it goes back to it. If it's looser and it'll keep going like a little longer. So it's, I don't know. With microtonal guitar setups, it's really finicky and difficult to get them playing just perfectly and to get the action like properly sustained and all that. It can be a challenge. So, but yeah, the buzzing is difficult. The fretting is difficult. It's harder. It's like, okay, if you thought guitar was hard and then you went to microtonal guitar, just accept it's going to be like twice as hard. But you'll get good at it. You know, I'm still not where I want to be on my 16 tone guitar, and I play all the time and I
Mm.
teach. So it's like, there you go.
I'm like not nearly like even touching like the what I want to explore. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you. You know, I feel the same way. What that comes down to is like, you know, the possibility for new licks is there. It's just somebody has to sit there and come up with some new licks.
yeah.
You know, when you do a group of four sequence on a regular guitar, there's like three. It's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you get 1,
Hmm.
2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, there's three patterns that you have to memorize to do groups of four in a mode and be like one, up vertically in a mode. You got to have three patterns.
Hmm.
Well, these scales, you're going to have 4 and 5 sometimes. And they're not going to be normal patterns. They're going to feel different.
Yeah.
Add one where there's not normally one, and then go back to normal, and then add another one that's not normal, and then go back to normal. And it's a matter of practice, and it's a matter of somebody doing that cosmonaut guitar knot work, where you're going through the licks and just and giving
Yeah, and
people
the
something
theory
new.
and etc. Yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been meaning to do that for a long time. I've been meaning to get on YouTube and just do like F super major and 16 tone arpeggio, you know, and then do sub minor arpeggio, and then minor arpeggio, and then regular major arpeggio, you know, super major major, super major major, minor sub minor between the two, you know, and
Hmm.
stuff like that. Just stuff like that would be so useful, I think. And I still
For
haven't done it.
sure. I mean, yeah, I would consider that it would inspire a lot of people to pick up the specific temperament because there's information about, you know.
Yeah, yeah, because then it's like, okay, I can practice this with this video and learn my scales, you know. There's so much material out there for 12 tone.
Yeah,
And
like
it's so much more alluring.
incomparable. Yeah.
Like look at Jam Track Central and these websites like this where they have these awesome jam tracks, right? You know, Guthrie Govan and these
Mhm.
players are amazing, and they got these great packs and odd time pack and this pack and, you know, jazz pack and rock, you know. It's nothing like that exists for microtonal guitar, you
Yeah.
know. And the reason why is because it's just such a new emerging thing, and the theory is so exclusive still. The only charts books are my books, you
Pretty
know.
much. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no guitar charts out there besides the ones that I put online. So it's the information is like it's not out there. It's still not out there. It needs to be
Mhm.
more out there. Are you going to release a 24 tone album?
Like I have these few tracks like that I sent before,
You
and
going to do a demo with it? Like how many total do you have?
like I currently have like 5 songs, and three of them have like microtonal
That's enough.
solos and things
5
like
is
that.
enough.
But they are not entirely like what you could consider that it's like 24. There's just maybe a solo that is in 24, or like some riff
Mhm.
like you know, is like quarter note down for some power
That's
chord
still
or something.
cool. It doesn't
Yeah,
all
I
have to be
have
quarter tone.
I have that, yeah, but like it's not like this like jazz like modulations and things like that, and like different modes over like one chord or something.
A
No,
lot of
like
that stuff just doesn't work, I find, in metal. Like
yeah,
you can fit it to work, but it just metal is it sounds good when you just go from
I
F to E.
I feel like 24 has a lot of potency, like a lot, because you can
Very sharp.
determine the content, you know, of what you want to include because you have the 12 tone bases under it, you know.
Yeah.
But
And
like
it's
if I had,
aggressive sounding. It's one of the most aggressive sounding equal temperaments, I think, is 24.
yeah,
Hands down.
and I think if I had like 16, maybe I'll refret the six string to 16 locally, you know, because it's cheaper and faster, you know.
Yeah.
I
Do
mean,
it.
and then if I had 16, I would like immediately available like this harsh, like everything is microtonal, you know, and
Yeah.
then I would apply like this diatonic harmony and try to,
16 is kind of like a miniature 24 in a way
yes,
because
because
you've
it
got
has the minor whole tone or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
divides the minor third in half, and that's a
yeah.
really cool thing. Minor whole tones are really cool.
I like it the most likable.
It's a
Yeah.
different world. yeah, like a cycle of minor fifths is really neat. You know,
Mm,
it sounds almost like chromatic, but when you hear what it's doing and you start really hearing it,
yeah.
it's like
But
a darker universe, but it's cool. It's like I don't know how to describe it.
now I'm currently working on music that's more microtonal, So not just speaking in terms of modal harmony, but sometimes even just like having some kind of riffs where just power chord ascends or something like three or
Yeah,
four times, and that's also very cool,
yeah, yeah,
things
yeah.
like that, So we'll see, But yeah, I'm really looking in the future towards 16 tone, So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a good one. You know, another one that's great is 15 because when you learn your arpeggios in 15, unlike a regular guitar, there's no like B string when you're
yeah.
tuning in fourths.
Oh,
It doesn't go like fifth fret, fifth fret, fifth fret, fourth fret, fifth fret
yeah,
like a regular guitar when you're tuning the open strings. It's tuned like just straight up in fourths,
yeah.
and it still hits E A D G B E.
Hmm.
You still end up with a G and a B there, even though you didn't have to go one fret lower to hit the G
Hmm.
and B to get that third between the strings. So um, when you play a minor arpeggio on five strings, and you go to play it on the low E string, it's the same fingering entirely. Like
Hmm.
it feels like an isomorphic keyboard, but a guitar. It's like you play a major chord and it's a major
Hmm.
chord here, major chord here, major chord here, major chord here.
Yeah,
Everywhere it's a major chord, you see? So 15 is kind of cool for that.
yeah. But 16 is like very
16 is
dingy
rules,
and
though.
yeah. I
16
like
rules, it has diminished.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, for now, I don't really have much more to ask, and I feel like I have learned incredibly much, and I'll probably
Cool.
rewatch this for like many times, and I really feel invested that I should spend more time with microtonality and actually go to the theory and etc. And
Yeah, do you have the program Scala?
yeah.
Yeah.
I use
That
it
was
for this
that's probably
purpose.
one of the biggest things for me is starting off as Scala. And I got an M Audio keyboard, a
Yeah.
cheap key station M Audio keyboard,
Hmm.
and you can take those apart and you can take the keys out and rearrange them.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
can you can change to any equal temperament you want. Got a 16 tone keyboard somewhere in
I
here.
saw a video where you had this
Yeah.
like 16 tone, yeah, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so you could do that with, if you wanted, you could make a crazy quarter tone one too, man.
yeah.
Like in Macamic temperament. I think quarter tone still has Macamic. So you can do a 10 note scale in quarter tones that is like the diatonic scale in 17. It's something
Mm-hmm.
like, I think it's 331 3331 331.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a diatonic scale with another tetrachord kind of
Yeah.
put on there, but it's not a tetrachord because it's squeezed in. So it's like it's weird. But yeah, the Macamic scales like probably if I was in 24, I would do a lot of investigation in the Macamic modes,
Mm-hmm.
and mixing that stuff with diminished would be really interesting.
For sure. I
Um,
mean, yeah.
like if you're playing like mostly major and minor like stuff, and then you do like little melodic hammer-ons and slides like internally,
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of a little those little things that make
Oh, yeah,
guitars.
you can really use quarter tones expressively. I found, yeah.
Yeah, but use like the major and minor patterns as a basis. You can
Yeah.
maybe do like neutral stuff too. I'm not sure if it has neutral. I
It
need
it like has this like yeah, it has neutral intervals. Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So yeah, you could do like kind of like neutral stuff too, and get that neutral kind of like breathy sound, and then go into like a diminished kind of, I don't know, you know you
Mm-hmm.
could mix arpeggios up, bitonal arpeggios, and crazy Macamic 13s and type chords. Just think
Mm-hmm.
about all that stuff, man. There's so much stuff.
Yeah, and some, especially
I
with
wish I had a
distortion.
24. I don't have a
Actually,
24 tone right now.
Actually, with like a right distortion and little bit of ring mode, like
Mhm.
very low, you can get incredible resonance in some intervals. Like it's really
Yeah.
cool. You just want to strum them all day.
Yeah, there's the sharp fourth, just one step sharp. If you use that note really high up in a chord, it's like it's the nice 11th harmonic.
Yeah.
super zingy kind of tone. I'm trying to think what fret that would be on. Anyways, it's one step above where the
Yeah.
fourth would be, and you just toss it up a couple octaves. It'll sound really cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so far, I
So
mean,
yeah, glad to talk with you, man.
yeah, I'm very, very,
Anytime you have questions, just let me know, man. I
yeah.
try to answer the best. I'm not, not Paul Ehrlich over here.
Hey, it's okay. I mean, I'll always
But
late and etc. And I have no problem, you know. So it was
yeah.
really good for me, you know,
What do you
to
think of
get
the
more.
Lumitone? You seen those Lumitone?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw this like girl. How is she named? Like Amelia. Like she
Mhm.
demoed one of the Lumitones, and she's
She's got a
like a
Lumitone now?
pianist. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Cool.
she I don't remember the temperament, but she had like some kind of GI, and like
Yeah.
at one point she hit like a dominant chord, and it was like very, very. It has a strong dominant quality, like
Hmm.
this insane
Yeah.
resonance. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
cool.
they're very, very expensive, but I mean, for some people, it can really, really do something else, you know.
Yeah, for those guys who just have been talking about it for so long, it's a no-brainer. They have
Yeah,
to
and
get.
actually, one practical tip for people who have regular guitar, you can actually be microtonal. Just tune one or two strings, 50 cents sharp or flat, and you'll have a lot of opportunities actually, because of
Yeah.
the way that guitar is like playable horizontally and vertically. You can actually get some microtonal intervals and scales and
Hmm.
etc. So
Yeah, there's quite a few pieces that use guitars tuned off by small intervals across sometimes two guitars to get like some
yeah.
crazy large EDO and
But
then
even in
compose.
one guitar, yeah, I also have done this in my EP at some points. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, see, that's really cool. I thought about doing something like that too with the 16, since the fifths are a little bit out. I was thinking
yeah,
about tuning in tritones, right?
hmm,
Like a limba guitar.
yeah,
But then tuning the tritone a little bit off so that the fifth is perfectly in tune when I go like this.
hmm,
So I have perfect fifths essentially with my open chords, and then just screw it.
yeah,
And it's all up in octaves. So it's like octave, 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 octave. So the
hmm,
tuning would be like C, F sharp, C, F sharp, C, F sharp,
hmm,
or F sharp, C, F sharp, C, F sharp, C, just in tritones, just adjusted for the perfect fifth. It just depends if we were going to be using a lot of tritones or perfect fifths, you know.
yeah.
That's the thing. Is like you got to just go for what you need, and it doesn't matter, you know.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I even tuned like my guitar in some kind of. It was, of course, it wasn't the quarter tonal guitar. I tuned it some kind of weird poly, like this whole tone polychord, just so I can like harmonic strum it and have some cool open voicing options for
Yeah,
metal, like very dissonant, like.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was having hard time to find anything and because it's
It's
quarter
cool to
tone.
tune those open strings to something crazy, you know, like a cool, like tritone or a dissonant cool
Mhm.
chord, and then bom 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 bom
Yeah,
bom.
that's what I did. Yeah, yeah, it
Because when you
sounds
go to
like
do
it.
it on a regular guitar after that, you're like, it
Yeah,
doesn't have that cool
yeah,
thing.
for sure.
So yeah, I've done that too. Yeah, it's fun, man. Tunings are fun. That's how you get into. I think there's many ways you can get into like the microtonal thing,
Mm,
and it just starts with some necessity of some type. Like for me, it was like the way that I first ever found microtones. I think um, was the Harry Parch documentary. Um, I think
hmm.
it might have been that. It might have
I
been
know
that.
who he is.
And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
watched the documentary, and on the beginning of the documentary, there was like a Greek. He did some Greek scale on a violin or something, and it
Hmm.
was like
Yeah.
it sounded like an old time movie, you know, warbling, and it just sounded like from another world. It sounded like pirate music from another world. It was insane. And I really like the sound of an ancient Greek scale. That's probably the number one reason why I got into microtonality. And the other thing is the way that nested MOSs work, and the way that you've got like 12, 19, 31 along the MOS
Hmm.
family tree there in mean tone temperament. Um, 31 tone has that enharmonic Greek scale in it, you know, and It's nested in 12, man. It's nested in 19. It's nested in there. It's just melodically there. So if you're playing 19 and you do little bends, you're gonna hit Enharmonic family because it's part of that family, you know. Anyway, that Enharmonic scale like lit it up for me, man. It drew me into microtones. It made me like, I knew that scale too. Like I used to sing music and I'd go, you know, I do these little inflections with my voice and stuff like that. And even in my head, like, I don't even know, like it was weird. I knew that scale before I knew that scale.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, was another thing with microtonality. It's like, it exists and it does something. And that thing is that thing. Like the seventh harmonic sounds bluesy. You can use another word, but it has a bluesy, brassy quality to it. You know, the 11th harmonic has a metallic, weird, mercurial kind of elemental kind of sound to it. Sounds almost like a toxic metal element, just really spacey and glowing. And the 11th harmonic is weird and alien. People will say that it's alien. So like each harmonic has a sound. The fifth harmonic, you know, major thirds and 19 tone, for example, they're really like warm and lush, and they have that agape love kind of quality to them where you feel like really, it's like has this vacuum almost kind of quality to it. And that vacuum inside that beating of the chord, it's like you feel like this like love warmth, and it's just like this emotional effect that harmonic has, and it exists whether you feel it or are listening for it. Whether you listen for it and it affects you, it's there. It's hanging out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what is really interesting to me. It's like there's this huge interconnectivity of all these series of notes and scales, right? And it's kind of like this network of the way music works, or just how
I
the
mean,
notes.
especially I have heard this in like, especially if you string together some harmonic series, like intervals in a chord, and it always comes down to this one sound, this like this roaring, like yeah,
Yeah.
something like yeah,
The dominant chords in there, the major chords in there, the
yeah,
minor chords in there, everything's in there. You can find it
yeah,
in each piece, but it just goes like it's like a spiral, you know.
yeah.
And if you cut the spiral in half, you'll look along the line. It's, you know, you'll have some ratios that are just doubled. They're the same note essentially. Anyways, the harmonics have their own quality, and that's the fascinating thing. It's like, you know, when you play music, you're animating that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and there's the concept, you know, musica mondana, musica humana, music of the spheres. It's like stuff that exists without you playing it. And then musica humana is like when you start playing the music and you illuminate those notes,
Yeah.
and you're animating the spheres, right? You know, so that was another concept. It was like, it felt like kind of divine to me. Like, oh man, I'm getting into some like it's like divinity here. This is like divine concepts. This is like space, um, interconnected. You know, I'm getting more familiar with what's there. You know, like, I don't know. It's a deep connection kind of feeling.
I mean, I got this connection
Music.
where when you played this Bohlen-Pierce. It's like really obscure, like exactly as it should be. Like I don't know.
Cool. Yeah, the Bohlen-Pierce scale special. I don't play it as much as I used to, man. But I used to play it, and I used to really like. I don't know. It used to whisk me away. It was just a really cool scale. I should play it more. I just, like I said, I'm so like intertwined with these albums that I'm making right now that it just feels like not focused when I play anything else but 16, and I'm tracking solo. Like right now I'm tracking solos, you know. And then I got to step back, then go back to it because same solo over and over. You heard it a million times. It's not good anymore.
Yeah. I know you have to dig deeper, find something
Yeah,
unique, etc.
I'm at the point now where we've done a couple demos and we like it, but like, you know, it has to stand a little test of time, you know. So what you have to do is you have to wait it out, go back and
Yeah,
go.
you have to wait till the pie is like not hot, you know. So
Yeah, it like ferments.
yeah,
It like ferments and
that's
gets
how it
better.
is. Yeah, it's different sensory experience from like different
Yeah, and then you might
flavors.
discover it's too crammed here, or it's better there, or you just need a bend. Just give me a
Yeah,
bend, for the love of God. You know, you hear it and you're like, oh, just do a bend.
Yeah.
You know.
But that's true. Yeah, I have lot of moments like that. So
Yeah, so you know that's, dude. It comes down to like left to right music making, man. With the microtones. That's our first album. When we made our first album, it was made in a week. It
yeah.
was so quick. This album has taken years and years because it's all pre-written, and then I transcribed it to 16, and then I did this and that. It's like, oh my god, so much work, and it's hard, man. It's hard to put something away and then come back and then be happy with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm doing. So that's what I'm doing. It's tough,
But it's
but
very rewarding, you know.
it's very rewarding, and it's worth it. It's worth doing.
For sure. It puts some like smile on that at the end of the day that nothing else can, you know, put, you know. That's how it is. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't have anything else to say, and I'm really, really grateful for this. Like, it left me more than inspired than I could ever imagine, you know.
Cool.
And
Yeah, if you need any links to like the Schlesinger book,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's on the Anaphorian website. I can get you the link for that.
mm-hmm.
Get you the link to Scala and some other links of stuff that we talked about.
Yeah,
I'll give you a bunch of links so that you know, go check
yeah,
those out,
yeah.
and anyone who watches this can
Mm-hmm.
check them out.
For sure. I mean, thank you very much again, and
Awesome.
yeah, then maybe catch you at some time later when I have a question or you know.
Yeah.
You know, but so far it was really great. Thank you very much.
All right, man.
Okay, then see ya.
All right, I'll catch you next time. Have a great
Yeah.
rest of your Saturday.
Thank you for you too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.